So were any of you at the fall open house? Was there anyone who was here twice? No? Okay, I'll make a note to myself. So this is a little bit of a different presentation than we had in the fall. So in the fall, I talked a little bit more about our faculty and the different research that they do and the different research centers that are here. And today I'm going to focus a little bit more on our students and some of the cool work they've been doing this year. So you'll have to bear with me. I'm not sick, I'm not infectious, but I'm on week 3 of bronchitis. So if I have to take a coughing break, I deeply apologize for my tuberculosis-like presentation today. So the Bachelor of Arts and Science here at Mount A is a new program that we're really, really excited about. In fact, this year was our first cohort of students. So we have our first crop of students going through this program, although it was modeled in response to increased student demand for programs like this. And many of the classes that we offer as part of this program are classes that have been going on here for a long time. So it's based on established expertise here at Mount A. My name is Artis Wynot. I'm the director of the health studies program here at Mount Allison. My primary appointment is in sociology. I'm a qualitative researcher, so a lot of the work that I do is qualitative in nature, meaning that I explore the world in ways other than counting it and translating it into graphs. So one of the really great things about this particular degree is, when we are counseling students who want to go into a health-related field, whether it's a professional field like occupational therapy or social work, or whether they want to explore a policy route or go the academic track towards a master's or PhD, they often are sort of having to decide between Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Science. And there's a lot of opinions and a lot of different thoughts that different advisors and mentors give on where those two tracks will land you. And the exciting thing about this program is that it's not a compromised version of either. It's an extremely strong and rigorous program in both the arts and sciences, which of course, as you know, Mount A has a reputation for being a university that has extremely strong thinkers and rigorous programs. So interdisciplinary health studies really encourages students to engage with problems that relate to health from a multidisciplinary intersectional lens. So rather than focusing in on one tiny area of expertise and building that throughout your career, what students are asked to do is to be quite nimble and precise in how they move from different positions of analysis. And this really follows the trend in how we see big research teams and different folks around the world, including politicians and bureaucrats, tackling complex problems like climate change, like hunger, and COVID-19, of course. So some of the perspectives you can explore here, of course, involve the biological, the behavioral, social, environmental, ethical. We have a strong component of philosophy and bioethics in our program, which really sets us apart from other health studies programs. There is one at St. FX as well, but ours is extremely strong in sort of looking at the ethical dimensions, which is something that's of interest to students who might want to pursue medical school as well, because of course, having training in bioethics is important. So these are just some of the classes that are available to you as a student in the Bachelor of Arts and Science program here at Mount Allison. So as you can see, everything from sex and sexuality to exploring the Indian Act, law and policy for Canadian First Peoples, all of these different aspects of how we think about health and well-being in the 21st century are really open to you. But I thought I would give an example of an interdisciplinary thinker, someone that I really look up to in my research, someone I discovered as a master's student many years ago. And I think she's a really great example of the type of thinker that this program is looking to support. So Charlotte Watts is a fairly well-known epidemiologist. She's an HIV researcher based out of the UK. So although she's a mathematical epidemiologist, she had undergraduate training in gender and women's studies and sociology. And that really separated her out from her peers who were working for the World Health Organization, trying to do HIV/AIDS prevention in Western Africa. And one of the things she's really famous for is she was the first epidemiologist to put a social power analysis into the mathematical calculations that virologists were using and epidemiologists were using to predict where the HIV/AIDS pandemic is going to have larger outbreaks, right? So a lot of this mathematical modeling that we do when we're predicting disease is based on trying to predict and then target interventions there. But those models weren't really working. And Charlotte Watts was the one who came up with a model that did work, because she was the first one to say, hey, 2 people during an act of HIV/AIDS transmission are involved, but we represent them mathematically the same way. But we know that men and women in Western Africa have very different experiences of power. So one is able to negotiate condom use, whereas the other one isn't, right? Because of patriarchal society, because there were power differences. So she actually changed the math. She changed the mathematical equation to account for the power difference between those where they were seeing HIV/AIDS transmission the most. And her predictions actually helped target one of the first most successful HIV/AIDS interventions in that area. And I think Charlotte Watts as a thinker is a really good example of the types of thinkers that we're seeing now in our first year at Mount Allison, who are really bringing different perspectives together to solve complex problems. So these are the core courses in the health studies program. So all of the BASC students are going to have to take Health and Society, Foundations of Health Inquiry, the Canadian Healthcare System, Health Research and Analysis, Health Communications, and a course on epidemiology and public health. So there's a bit of a focus here between the conceptual, the abstract, and the ethical towards hands-on, more clinical, experimental, and quantitative ways of thinking about data and healthcare research design. Excuse me, but of course, in addition to these courses, so you can see there's 2 courses at the first year level, 2 at the second year, 3 at the third year, and of course, in the 4th year, there's a full year-long capstone course where all courses, all students in health studies who are doing it as pursuing it as a major are going to be working together on some sort of project, some sort of research project. So we're really excited about offering that one as well. Are there any questions? I'm sort of speeding through this stuff fairly quickly. Does anyone have any questions right off the bat? Okay. So I'll give you an example of the types of things you would be exploring in your first year as a health studies student. So what does health mean in our culture? And it may seem, like we take for granted that we all have a common understanding of what health means, but it has very different meanings in different contexts. So we really start with unraveling some of our assumptions behind healthism, ableism, what it means to have health in a Western context. In Health 1011, you will explore how we interpret data, health-related research in a landscape of misinformation and confusing statistics, because of course, science is doing itself right when it's proving itself wrong, right? We know that. We're constantly revising and revisiting. So you're going to learn skills about sort of what sorts of data and evidence are strong and how to navigate that. And you're going to be learning what kinds of skills and frameworks you're going to need to tackle complex and overwhelming problems. So some of the ways that you will need to work together with your peers and groups, we're going to be practicing those hands-on. And of course, this particular program, our class sizes are significantly smaller than you find in other universities. So you're going to be in a smaller class. You're going to get to know your peers by name, and you're going to be able to do that hands-on work in class versus when I did my undergraduate science degree at Dalhousie, there were like 900 students in my first year of bio class. And here you're looking at probably around 50 students max. So I promised I was going to talk a little bit about our students. So this is a photo from our official health studies program launch that we held earlier this September. So we have a really diverse and really fun group of students who started with us this year. One of our students, Emily, has begun our first health studies student society. So that's going to be up and running next year. And they're going to be doing things like inviting guest speakers to come to campus. They're going to be hosting study halls, and they're going to be doing some of the work of welcoming the incoming cohort of first-year students as well. So we're trying to encourage a bit of a generational connection between the first and second-year health studies students. One of our other students said, unfortunately, she joined us a bit late this year, but our student Zara is here from Afghanistan, and she's looking at issues around health equity in her home country, and she's going to be sort of tailoring her work as she goes through in the health equity stream of the program to look at how she can return to her country and do health systems work there as well. So this is a picture from one of my fourth year seminar classes. So who knows who Andre Picard is? Who's Andre Picard? Probably heard his name before. He's always on the news. So he is Canada's top health journalist. So when we talk about health studies as a degree that really prepares you for a variety of directions, you can be thinking about things like health law, health journalism. And so this is actually a podcasting project that some of my students did in a fourth year seminar class, where they were tasked with taking an area of widespread public misinformation and telling a different kind of story to the public. So they had to select a story and create a podcast that corrected this misinformation in a compelling way. So it was a bit of an exercise in knowledge translation and public outreach. And one of the students who worked in a group in this particular class, she did a project on the criminalization of injection drug use and homelessness in Halifax. So they focused on looking at the ways in which criminalization impacts health outcomes negatively. And she submitted part of that project to a very well-known journalism master's program, and she was one of only 14 students accepted nationally this year. And she's sort of looking at focusing her career as a health journalist. This is one of our other students, Isabella. So Isabella is doing really neat work. Some of the research that she's involved in doing is a review of available self-help literature and looking at information and misinformation about anxiety and anxiety support on TikTok. So she's doing a bit of an evidence-based review and also a critical analysis of the sorts of information that's out there in the public. Isabella is also working both as a research assistant and a teaching assistant. And that's the cool thing about Mount A. As an undergraduate student, it's probably one of very few places in Canada where you actually will get experience as a teaching assistant. We have quite a few students who do that, as well as a research assistant, because at a bigger university where there are master's students, they usually get all those opportunities, right? But here, because we only have one graduate program, they're available to you, which of course looks really great both on your CV if you're looking for employment post-degree or if you're looking to go to grad school. This is another cool project that's going on right now. And I wanted to include this in case there was anyone who's considering doing our program who's into the arts, fine arts, or creative arts. So this is an arts-based research project that I'm involved in with some of my colleagues and some folks in Fredericton and Halifax as well. And we've had 3 different Mount A students working on this project doing hands-on arts-based research with queer, trans, non-binary, and two-spirit youth in the Maritimes, looking at their mental health status and doing a bit of a mental health needs assessment throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. And one of the things that we did is we brought together elders in the Rainbow community who survived the AIDS pandemic, and we did a bit of arts-based research with them, and we created a mental health resource book that's being piloted in schools here in New Brunswick that's got a bit of a workbook approach to doing a mental health needs assessment with helpful advice from folks who survived HIV/AIDS. Of course, this is our student, Hannah Kraus. Hannah is now an alum of Mount A, but Hannah took many of the courses that you would take if you were here as a health studies student. And Hannah's presenting the results of her work on this particular project at a national conference. So we're sending her to Congress, which is a big convergence of folks in social sciences and humanities. And she's going to be presenting that research there on the national stage, on stage with a bunch of other academics and some other Mount A alum as well, who are all presenting their research nationally. Okay, so those are our students. What about our faculty? Who is going to be teaching the program? Who are you going to be learning from? Well, this is Dr. Jane Dryden, who is a philosopher of disability. She taught our first ever Health 1001 this year, and also will be teaching some of the other courses that are available to you here at Mount A. This is Dr. Jill Rourke, who I'm going to talk about in a moment. And this is Dr. Christiana McDougall, who does work on birth, midwives, birth trauma. And Dr. McDougall is actually a clinical social worker here in the sociology department, but also a member of the health studies program as well. So she's worked clinically. She worked for a few decades clinically in hospitals. And now we're lucky enough to have her here at Mount A. So hopefully you'll get to take some of her classes as well. And of course, two of our scientists here. We have Dr. Vet Lloyd, and some of you might have heard Dr. Lloyd on the radio, Maritime Noon, talking about ticks. So Vet Lloyd is the resident maritime tick expert, amongst other things. So Dr. Lloyd has also done research on COVID-19, on chronic illness, but has done some really great work using this concept called One Health. Now, does anybody know what One Health is? It's a framework for thinking through health as something that is impacted by our environment. So it's an ecological perspective on our health that's impacted by legal policies, that's impacted by all these different aspects of society that we don't often think about within health or clinical medicine. So when we think about Lyme disease in the Maritimes, Dr. Lloyd would remind us that because of climate change, the habitat for ticks and their life cycle is changing. So therefore our risks for Lyme disease are changing. And they do some really great testing here. They test ticks for Lyme disease here at Mount A, and many of our students go to work in Dr. Lloyd's lab. And of course, Dr. Rourke has just received a big infusion of funding, of national funding for her laboratory. She works at the molecular level. So some of the courses you're going to take are going to stand back, like from the One Health perspective or from a sociological perspective, and look at large populations, right? So how do we think about populations in health? Well, then you zoom all the way down, like Horton Hears a Who, you know, that Dr. Seuss book. And in Dr. Rourke's lab, you're going to be thinking through cancer and tiny little molecular reactions that you might be able to work on in her lab as it might relate to future cancer treatment. And of course, Dr. Rourke was voted the, I believe it was Science Educator of the Year by the New Brunswick Health Research Foundation last year. And she is much beloved, and she'll be teaching biochem 1001 next year. So if you do the program with us, you will have her in first year. So a little bit about our campus. So some of this I've said already. I was in a meeting earlier this week, and our provost made a comment that I never thought of before, but it's very true. Folks come to Mount A and stay at Mount A, or faculty come here and stay here because we like working with students, directly with students, and having strong relationships with them. And it's true, because you really get to know each other in the classroom in a small class size in a way that you just don't in a larger research university. The hands-on research experience that you have here at the undergraduate level is so valuable in terms of being able to give you, if you decide that you don't want to do another degree after your health studies degree, you will have a CV that is going to get you a job. And of course, our stats around postgraduate employment are very strong here. And some of the research you could be doing, so for example, one of the areas we're growing in this program is there is going to be a new affordable housing and health center development here in the town of Sackville. And the folks who are involved in doing that with the provincial government want our students to do a health needs assessment here in town in Sackville to determine what types of medical services are going to be included within the provincial healthcare system here in this new development. So that's pretty incredible. So instead of bringing in, a whole crew of consultants from big universities, they want our students involved at the ground level in that hands-on research experience. So again, access to opportunities usually reserved for graduate students. And the comments that I hear from my students that go on to do master's programs are, hey, I'm reading things in my master's program that we already read in the undergraduate level. I'm way ahead of my peers. This is something we hear time and time again, because we're able to help you tackle difficult and challenging material and to learn difficult skills in a small class in a way that you just can't in a large classroom of students. So again, strong employment and post-degree records. So one study from our alumni office shows that 3/4 of our students who graduate from programs with us go on successfully to do another graduate program. And that includes the Ivy League track as well. So many of my students that have worked with me through an undergraduate honors program go on to get accepted to U of T. And of course, the pathway, if you want to go to Ivy League schools in the United States, is you go Mount A, U of T, and then Harvard. That's my suggestion, but we do have students who have gone in that track. So again, these are just some of the places that a health studies degree can take you. Medical school. Nonprofit work, and there are a lot of organizations that we're partnered with here on this campus that do health-related work. Occupational therapy, counseling therapy, government. So some of my grads that have done health-related research with me are working as research analysts with the federal government in Ottawa. Law school. So a colleague of mine, Matthew Herder, is a lawyer, but he's actually the CIHR, that's a big health research funding agency. He's an applied health research chair at Dalhousie. He's a health lawyer, and there's a strong need for that. There are also public health master's programs and health administration master's programs that would be a great fit for someone graduating from our program as well. And of course, social work is always a popular one for students who want to go back and work in community. These are just some of the research questions that we think about under the umbrella of health studies. So what is the relationship between our economic system and food security and insecurity? How is the housing crisis a public health crisis? How can commonly used compounds fight cancer? These are all the questions. There's a professor who wrote a book called Loving the Questions about the undergraduate liberal arts university in the 21st century. And I really love that book. And that's the way that I teach research methods in my classes, is that it's about being genuinely curious about something. I mean, it's one thing, you want to get a job, right? When you finish your degree, you want to have a stable, good income and a good job. But you also want to have the skills to be able to ask big questions in the world and to work with other folks effectively to find the answers to those questions. Again, how is gender affirming care a life-saving practice? So one of my students is presenting at a Nova Scotia Health conference with me later this month at a gender affirming care conference, and they're going to get to speak directly to doctors and nurses and other clinical staff in the Nova Scotia Health Authority on how gender affirming care should work. It's a pretty great opportunity for an undergraduate student. So I've talked a lot about why I love this program, why I'm really excited about it. But there's time for questions, and I'd love to hear from you if you have thoughts or queries or anything you'd like to know about our BASC. Or life in Sackville. Yes, there is often a lot of snow. You're wondering. And of course, that's my email. You're all welcome to send me an email anytime if you have questions about the program as well.
We do have a question from an online participant.
Okay.
It's from Victoria. Can you switch to the BASC after first year?
After first year. So we do have students that have done it. Yes, there's also an option to take health studies as a minor. So for example, if you want to go to medical school and you feel more comfortable getting a straight BSc, you can also have health studies as a minor with a BSc, or say maybe you're not so much into the science side. Maybe you're like, I want to do the BISC, but I'm not that strong in numbers. I'm not that really interested in taking biochem. You can also do, say, a BA in sociology with a minor in health studies as well. So those are all options. I saw another question over there.
That was my question. I was just wondering if health studies courses were open to students in different programs other than the Bachelor Science.
Well, see, that's an interesting question. Right now, they are not very open, so there are very limited seats. If we open them to all students on campus, they would be giant, absolutely giant. And what we're trying to do is make the classes small so that all incoming BISC students and health studies minors, so if you're taking health studies as a minor, you will be able to get into the course. We want to make it personal enough so that you get to know your peers, because life is busy and hectic, and it's an interdisciplinary program, so we want to make sure that, at the end of the day, you know the names of the folks you're studying with.
Actually, a question about the prerequisites from a science perspective. what kind of prerequisites do you need coming out of high school? Do you need things like calculus and chemistry or that sort of thing, or?
So it's funny, I thought actually our director of admissions is going to be here. So I'm not with admissions. So I don't really handle the admissions side of things. But if you'd like to send me an email, I can definitely send that.
So I'm part of the admissions team. So essentially for the Bachelor of Arts and Science, it follows the same admission requirements as a Bachelor of Science program. So with that, it's Academic English 12 and Pre-Calculus 12 are the two required courses for admission. And then where are you from? Fredericton. Okay, so for New Brunswick, it would be 3 additional accepted university prep courses. So, history, any of your other science courses. If you have any questions, we can chat after, or you can visit our website. But yeah, English and pre-calculus are the 2 core courses required. 2 questions on that. So why should a student choose the BA-SC over just the regular Bachelor of Science program?
Okay, I'm going to give a very off-the-cuff answer to this. I mean, I think I've answered part of that question talking about Charlotte Watts, how Dr. Watts was able to solve a problem very simply because she had taken undergraduate gender and women's studies and majored in that. So there are a lot of clinical research teams so when I teach research methods, I teach this. When we are trying to understand the world, especially when we're asking complicated questions with problems we can't solve, quantitative research and statistical research works really well to answer simple questions. But our social world is not simple. And for that, we need qualitative analysis. For that, we need to have an understanding of ethics. We need an understanding of the impact on culture, on behavior. We need to look not only at the individual, like we do in psychology, but also at groups, like we do in sociology. We also need to understand how different levels and systems of funding and laws and regulations operate, like in Canadian studies or political science. And so I'm often the token qualitative artsy person that's brought into clinical research teams because they find questions they can't answer. And so, my area in sociology, a lot of sociologists go on to be sort of the one sociologist in a clinical research team and, a hospital team. And I was at the IWK Health Center for 3 years in a role like that. But more and more, we're seeing that there's a need to have literacy between and amongst those disciplines. We need to be able to speak each other's languages more. And so, if you find if there are positions, say, for example, if you wanted to do the academic track, there are a lot of postdoctoral fellowships out there available for folks who have literacy in both areas. So, for example, vaccine research has realized they need a lot of social science content because it doesn't matter if you engineer the greatest vaccine. There's a lot of people who aren't going to take it. There's a lot of folks who are not going to vaccinate their kids. So the problem of vaccine intervention during a pandemic must be answered by folks who have literacy on the social world and the biological world from different perspectives. So I think it really makes you valuable in terms of, what you bring to a future employer and also what you bring to the world.
I noticed a lot of what we've been talking about this course is Western ideologies and Western systems. Do you ever look into the Eastern systems and how they differ and how the pros and cons?
Yeah, so that's a core component of Health 1001 is looking at sort of the bias that we have. So Canada is a settler colonial country. It was colonized by Europeans and we have like a very British way of thinking that's embedded in sort of mainstream society. And a lot of the ways that we understand science, like science is a cultural project, right? And that's one of the things we talk about. Most of the health studies students right now are taking Sociology 1201 with me. And so we talk about different cultural ways of thinking through things like objectivity and facts and how that relates to clinical research and how we need, for example, multicultural ways of understanding how we weigh the credibility of data and knowledge in certain circumstances. So you'll definitely will not only get that throughout your degree, but you'll get that in your first year as well.
So the health studies program is fairly new to Mount Allison. Where do you see the program, in 2 years and 4 years when, for example, this cohort is in their second or third year?
Yeah, so again, we're going to be seeing more and more internship and hands-on research opportunities. So as our program is growing, we started it deliberately very small, excuse me, because we really want to take care of the students that we have and not grow too big too fast. So what we're going to see are increased internship opportunities. Again, projects like you partnering with a new health project development in town to do research in the community of Sackville, doing a health needs assessment, that sort of thing. Another area in which we're going to be growing over the next 4 or 5 years is in the medical humanities. So the medical humanities is a field that brings together the fine arts and brings together the humanities with how we understand medicine. And there's a strong movement for that at the University of King's College in Halifax. So right now I'm in talks with them and hopefully soon with our art gallery here about how we can think through the value of the arts, not only to the life and experience of a clinician, the life and experience of a patient, but also as a way to be both a method and a way of capturing the experience and the sort of data that we need to understand health and healthcare. Oh, and we're going to get swag. We don't have any like hoodies or anything like that yet. So, in my department, our sociology students, they have all these like cool hoodies and things that they sell as fundraisers for the student society. So another fun thing is that we don't have our colors chosen yet for graduation. So, different programs have different colors in our fancy gowns that we wear. So we're toying with the idea of having a competition and voting on which colors we want to have. So if you join us early, you might be able to weigh in. Maybe pick hot pink or something really drastic like that.
So we do have a question from Ashley from the chat. It's more admission related. She's going through the program through a Bachelor of Arts to achieve the math requirement for health studies. Can she still take health studies as a minor until she's in the health studies program, or will she have to wait to transfer the year after?
So I would say that is a question for advising, but in terms of getting into classes, so if the intention is to transfer into a minor, then all she would need to do is to speak with me and I can make sure that she's got a spot. So regardless of when the transfer might happen, she should be able to have a spot.
And to add to that, Ashley, you don't have to declare your major or minor until the end of your second year. So you will have 2 years, to explore different options. And like we said, speak with an academic advisor about planning your courses.
Feels very strange that there's like a whole bunch of folks watching us on their computer right now. I can't see them. I don't know who they are.
So what is, can you speak more about the hands-on experience aspect that you mentioned, research opportunities, getting involved in labs, outside the lab even? What are some things students are doing?
Yeah, I mean, so of course, if you're lucky, you might get a research assistantship in one of the labs. But of course, if you take a lab-based course here at Mount, you're going to get lab time, which means you're going to get those clinical skills here at the ground level. And so, that's on the science side. In terms of the hands-on side, some of the hands-on courses that are available to you. So for example, we have a course, community-based research methods, where usually students go out and do a project in the community. Some years it's been with a food bank. In other years, my seminar classes have done sort of data analysis and research projects, both with the Cumberland Region Sexual Health Promotion Organization that's in Cumberland County in Nova Scotia, or with Autumn House, which is a transition center that we're looking to transition their programs to trauma-informed care. So one of the things our students did is they went through all their policy booklets and their programs, and they interviewed staff, and then they rewrote everything and added actual different curriculum modules, both for staff and clients of Autumn House, so that their programs met trauma-informed principles according to clinical evidence. So those are some of the hands-on things our students have been doing. In terms of internship opportunities, we have a great community engaged learning center here at Mount A. So, you know, apart from what you'll do in your classes, you also can pursue extra education through community engaged learning. And of course, there are also international learning opportunities. There are exchange opportunities as well. So we have a lot of exchange programs going. We have one going this summer in Italy and other places as well. It's just the only one I can think of offhand. And I mean, the other thing is that a lot of our students also work on campus as well. So work in computing services, they work, you know, they have different positions on campus. And so, you know, if you want to work part-time and sort of generate some stuff on your CV that's not related to the classroom, there are, even though, you know, Sackville is a small town, but there are lots of opportunities here on campus for that as well.
We have one more question from online. What are the biggest differences between biopsychology and health studies, as they're both Bachelor of Arts and Science programs? So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, biopsychology is a biological focus on the study of psychology, right? And so psychology, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can do a Bachelor of Arts stream in psychology as well as a Bachelor of Science stream in psychology. Because psychology, similar to sociology, you can go the stats route or you can go sort of the qualitative route in terms of research skills. So health studies is a lot more broad. It's much more broad, and it's the definition of health in health studies is more holistic. So although it is broad, every student in the program will have to have a concentration in one particular area. So what health studies does is it allows you to start broad in your first year and then narrow your expertise. So for example, if you're really interested in climate change, you've taken some environmental studies courses and you really like it, you can focus on climate change and ecological perspectives in health and sort of focus your expertise there so that you can go in that direction with your career. If you're interested in health administration, if you think, hey, you might want to work in a hospital, but you're not sure you want to do clinical medicine, then you can sort of focus on political science, Canadian studies, health systems research, and you can develop a concentration there. So I would say, you know, if you're really interested in psychology and you know that you want to go that route and you want to think about the unit of the individual and how the individual works, so a biological understanding of us as single units, then that's a great program to do as well.
Do you have a question from online again?
Okay.
Amanda has been offered admission to the Bachelor of Arts program because she didn't have the pre-calculus requirement. Can she take these courses or science courses in her first year, then switch over to this program in her second year? And then she has a follow-up question. Can she study biochemistry under BA, or is it a Bachelor of Arts and Science program?
That's an interesting question, and I'm not sure what the requirements are to be able to register for Biochem 1001. It's a really good question. I wish Dr. Work was here because she would know. So students in a BA program do have to take science credits. So you will, you know, as part of your degree, you have to do a certain number of those credits. And at the 1001 level is usually when you would take them. But as for transferring after first year, that might be a question better for you in terms of the specifics of it.
Yeah, so it's something that's definitely possible. I would encourage you to reach out to an academic advisor when selecting your courses in your first year. They can help guide you through that process, make sure you're hitting all those milestones that you need in order to transfer. As for if you can study biochemistry under the Bachelor of Arts program, unfortunately, it's only under the Bachelor of Science.
Right.
I'm just questions. So Amanda, I would also encourage you to reach out to us at admissions. We can give you, a couple different options if you do want to start, in your first year as a science student. However, like I said, it's definitely possible to transfer between programs with accurate and good degree planning.
But you can also minor in health studies with a BA.
Yes.
As well.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I answered your question. Anyone else
No
have
more
any
questions?
questions?
Well, a little known fact about Mount Allison is that the pond off Avard Dixon on the other side of our campus has a muskrat that is totally tame and just likes to hang out there. So you can skate there in the winter when it's frozen over, or you can go eat your lunch and hang out with the muskrat. It's a tiny little fluff of brown fur and not afraid of anything, not even my dog. Sometimes I walk my dog on campus and like the muskrat will just come and hang out with you on campus. I think that's my only fun fact about Sackville. Oh, Silver Lake is the closest swim spot, so you can ride your bike there from downtown. It's got a little sandy beach, so it's really nice in September. You still get to swim. You don't have to like walk for 5 kilometers down the muddy stretch of Bay of Fundy Beach to get to swimming water. Well, I think if there are no other questions, last call for questions online. Like I said, I'm here. My email's on the screen, and good luck making these decisions. It's such a big decision on where you're going to go next year, but I'm sure you'll all land on your feet no matter where you go. And I hope I do see you in September in Health 2001.
Thank you, Dr. Wynot. So, yeah, that concludes our health studies information session. Our final event for Winter Open House is taking place in Tweedy Hall. It's just a mix and mingle. You'll be able to chat with admissions staff and other staff you met here today. So we look forward to seeing you over there, and we hope you enjoyed your day and look forward to seeing you next year, hopefully. Thank you.